The fluorescent lights of the Springfield nuclear power plant flickered as Homer Simpson leaned back in his creaky chair, a glazed donut clutched in his greasy fingers. The control room was a familiar chaos of blinking monitors and ignored warning. Lights. Sprinkles, he mumbled, oblivious to the rising hum of the reactor core. A red alert flashed on the screen, but Homer's eyes were fixed on the sugary prize. He took a massive bite, crumbs tumbling onto his console just as a siren blared. The donut slipped from his hand, rolling across the floor as the ground trembled. "Go!" he yelped, scrambling to press random buttons. Too late. A deafening explosion tore through the plant, and Homer's world dissolved into fire. The blast was apocalyptic. Homer's skin blistered and melted, his scream drowned by the roar of collapsing steel. His body twisted unnaturally, bones snapping. As the inferno consumed him, his eyes bulged, then burst under the heat, and his flesh sloughed off in grotesque sheets. The last thing he saw was the donut, untouched amidst the chaos, as his consciousness faded into darkness. Death, however, was not the end. It was the beginning of something far worse. Homer awoke with a gasp, sprawled on a ground of hot, ashen sand that burned his palms. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur, and a blood-red sky churned above. Streaked with writhing, eel-like clouds, his body felt wrong, heavy, aching, yet whole again. Where am I?
He stammered, patting his face to find it intact. The distant wails of unseen sufferers echoed, chilling his spine. Staggered to his hand, clinging in like wet cement, and noticed his clothes replaced by tattered rags that smelled of decay.
A cheerful voice cut through the oppressive silence. "Well, hi diddly ho, neighbor." Homer spun to see a figure approaching, a twisted parody of Ned Flanders. This Ned's eyes were hollow black pits, his moustache a wriggling mass of centipede-like tendrils. His smile stretched ear to ear, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Welcome to your eternal vacation, Homer." The demon chirped, clapping a bony hand on Homer's shoulder, its touch ice-cold and searing at once. Before Homer could protest, a chain of polished human bones materialized, coiling around his wrists. "Let's get you settled, shall we?" Ned's grin widened, and he yanked the chain, dragging Homer across the scorching ground. They approached a colossal gate, its surface a writhing mosaic of carved faces, frozen in agony. Some were vaguely familiar. Lenny's wide forehead, Carl's furrowed brow, even a distorted Mr. Burns with hollow cheeks. The faces moaned, there, stone lips quivering as if begging for release. Homer's stomach churned. This ain't right, he muttered, trying to pull back, but Ned's grip was unrelenting. The gate creaked open, revealing a tunnel of pulsating, fleshy walls that dripped with dark ichor. The demon shoved him inside, and the gate slammed shut, sealing Homer in darkness. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber lined with mirrors, each reflecting a grotesque version of Homer. In one, his belly swelled until it burst, spilling writhing, toothy worms. In another, his arms stretched like taffy, snapping at the joints. A third showed his face melting into a puddle, his eyes floating free, still blinking in terror. The reflections spoke in unison, their voices a cruel chorus. "Failure, glutton, fool." Homer clapped his hands over his ears, but the words burrowed into his skull. He ran, desperate to escape, but the mirrors shifted, forming an endless maze. His own distorted screams echoed back, mocking him. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it," he sobbed, collapsing as the mirrors closed in, their surfaces cold against his skin. The mirrors vanished, replaced by a long, opulent table laden with food, piles of donuts, glistening ribs, frosty mugs of Duff beer. Homer's mouth watered despite his fear. "Finally, something good!" he exclaimed, lunging for a donut. But as he bit down, the donut squirmed, its dough splitting to reveal a mass of wriggling maggots that crawled into his mouth. He gagged, spitting them out, but they burrowed into his tongue, their tiny jaws gnawing. The ribs were worse. Each bite revealed they were made of severed fingers, still twitching. The beer burned like acid, searing his throat. The more he ate, the hungrier he grew, his stomach twisting in knots. Demonic laughter filled the air, and Homer looked up to see shadowy figures watching from above, their eyes glowing like embers. "Eat, Homer," they hissed. "You'll never be full." He tried to flee, but the table stretched endlessly, the food multiplying. His hands moved against his will, shoving more of the cursed feast into his mouth, his body bloated, skin stretching. Painfully, yet the hunger gnawed deeper. Tears streamed down his face as he choked on a donut that sprouted tiny, biting mouths. The demon Ned reappeared, clapping slowly. "Oh, Homer, this is just the appetizer," he said, his voice dripping with malice. The chain tightened around Homer's wrists, dragging him away from the table and into a new chamber where the air grew colder and the shadows thicker. Homer's heart pounded as he realized this was no nightmare he could wake from. The inferno of the plant had been a mercy compared to this. As Ned's laughter faded, replaced by the distant clank of machinery and the screams of the damned, Homer felt a crushing certainty. His suffering had only begun. The chain around Homer's wrists burned like molten iron as the demonic Ned Flanders dragged him from the banquet hall, his laughter echoing like shattering glass. Homer's mouth still stung with the taste of writhing maggots and acidic beer, his stomach a hollow pit of insatiable hunger. The tunnel they entered pulsed with a sickly rhythm, its walls of slick, veined flesh oozing black ichor that hissed on contact with the floor. The air grew heavy, laced with a metallic tang that made Homer gag. "Where are you taking me, you creepy Bible thumper?" he wheezed. But Ned's only response was a grin that split his face wider, revealing a second row of jagged teeth. The tunnel opened into a cavernous chamber dominated by a grotesque machine, a towering contraption of rusted iron, spiked gears, and barbed chains that groaned as if alive. Its surface was etched with screaming faces, their eyes hollow and weeping blood. Homer's heart sank. "Oh no, 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 this looks like one of Marge's craft projects gone wrong," he stammered, digging his heels into the ground. Ned's grip tightened, and with a flick of his wrist, the chains yanked Homer forward, slamming him onto a cold metal slab at the machine's center. Barbs sprouted from the surface, piercing his flesh, and he howled as they anchored him in a place. "Let's crank up the fun, neighbor," Ned cackled, pulling a lever. The machine roared to life, its gears grinding with a sickening crunch. Homer's body was stretched, his limbs pulled taut until his joints popped. Spikes drove into his sides, twisting slowly, while blades sliced thin strips of skin from his arms. The pain was unbearable, a white-hot agony that made his vision blur. But worse than the physical torment were the visions that flickered before his eyes, projected by the machine's glowing core. He saw Marge, her blue hair limp, sobbing alone in their darkened living room, clutching a photo of him. "Why didn't you come home, Homer?" she whispered, her voice cutting deeper than any blade. The scene shifted to Bart, older and hardened, spray painting a prison wall, his eyes empty of the mischievous spark Homer loved. Then Lisa, her saxophone abandoned, staring blankly at a rejection letter from Yale, muttering, "It's because of you, Dad." Each image was a dagger to Homer's soul, and he screamed, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it!" But the machine only tightened its grip, grinding his bones. Mercifully, the torture paused, and the chains slackened. Homer slumped, gasping, only to be hurled into a new nightmare. The machine dissolved, and he landed in a labyrinth of pulsating flesh, its walls slick with blood and studded with unblinking eyes that tracked his every move. The air was thick with the stench of decay and faint whispers, accusations of his Failures slithered through the corridors. He stumbled forward, desperate for an exit, but the paths twisted endlessly, defying logic. "This is worse than trying to find the car in the mall parking lot," he muttered, his voice trembling. A guttural snarl echoed behind him, and Homer froze. From the shadows emerged a demonic Mr. Burns, his skeletal frame wreathed in flames, his fingers elongated into razor-sharp claws. "Simpson, you've cost me everything," he hissed, his voice a venomous rasp. Beside him slithered Sideshow Bob, his body a grotesque fusion of man and serpent, his rake replaced by a tail lined with barbed spines. "Time for your final act, Homer." Bob sneered, his smile a jagged wound. Homer ran, his bare feet slipping on the bloody floor as the demons gave chase. The labyrinth seemed to conspire against him. Walls shifted, floors buckled, and pits of fire erupted without warning. A blade shot from the ground, slashing his leg, and he fell, clutching the wound as it oozed a viscous black fluid. As he crawled, other damned souls emerged from the walls. Moe, his face split into multiple screaming mouths, lunged at Homer, spitting curses. Barney, bloated to an impossible size, his skin bubbling with sores, wailed, "You drank my last duff." Their attacks were relentless, clawing and biting, each wound regenerating only to be torn open again. Homer's screams grew hoarse, his mind fraying under the assault. He stumbled into a dead end, where the floor gave way, dropping him into a shallow pool of scalding tar. He thrashed, the tar clinging to his skin, peeling it away in strips. The labyrinth spat him out into a small, sterile chamber, its walls smooth and white, a stark contrast to the organic horrors before. A single screen flickered to life, and Homer's heart sank as it replayed his worst moments. The time he sold Lisa's science project for beer money. The night he forgot Marge's birthday. The countless times he dozed off at work, endangering Springfield. Each memory brought a physical pain. His chest tightened as if crushed. His hands burned as if dipped in acid. He fell to his knees, sobbing. "I didn't know. I can change." But the screen looped, forcing him to relive his shame over and over. The walls closed in, the room shrinking until he could barely breathe, the weight of his guilt crushing him. As the chamber faded, Homer heard Ned's voice, distant but mocking. "Oh, Homer, we're just warming up." The ground beneath him gave way, and he plummeted into darkness, the screams of the damned rising to meet him. His body, battered and broken, yearned for an end, but the inferno of his torment only burned brighter. The labyrinth, the machine, the memories, they were pieces of a puzzle designed to unravel him, and he sensed the worst was yet to come. Homer plummeted through the void, the screams of the damned fading into a suffocating silence. His body ached from the labyrinth's torments, his mind raw from the relentless replay of his failures. The air grew thick, heavy with a cloying sweetness that turned his stomach. He landed hard on a surface that pulsed like living flesh, its warmth unnervingly intimate. The darkness parted, revealing a vast, cathedral-like chamber lit by flickering torches that cast writhing shadows. At its center stood a towering figure, a demon whose face shifted like molten wax, one moment a leering skull, the next a grotesque caricature of the devil from Springfield's Tree House of Horror, complete with curling horns and eyes that burned like molten gold. "Homer Simpson," it purred, its voice a seductive venom that crawled under his skin. "You've endured so much. Don't you crave release?" Homer staggered to his feet, his legs trembling. "Who? What are you?" he croaked, wiping sweat from his brow. The demon's form rippled, sprouting tendrils that coiled in the air like snakes. "I am your salvation," it said, gesturing to a glowing portal behind it, through which Homer glimpsed Springfield, Marge cooking in the kitchen, Bart skateboarding, Lisa reading under a tree. His heart ached with longing. One small price. The demon continued, its smile splitting to reveal a maw of needle-like teeth. "Offer me the souls of your family, and you'll return to them free from this torment." A contract materialized, its parchment made of flayed skin, the words written in dripping blood. Homer's breath hitched. The portal's images grew, vivid. Marge's warm smile, Bart's mischievous laugh, Lisa's gentle humming. The pain of the inferno, the mirrors, the labyrinth, all pressed against him, a crushing weight. "Just sign it," he whispered, his hand twitching toward the quill, which pulsed like a living thing. The demon nodded, its eyes glinting. Homer's fingers closed around the quill, its surface slick and warm. He saw Marge's face, her eyes full of love, and hesitated. I can't," he said, dropping the quill. "They're all I've got." The demon's smile vanished, its face contorting into a snarl. "Fool!" it roared, and the portal shattered like glass, the shards slicing Homer's skin as they fell. The chamber shook, and the demon's tendrils lashed out, wrapping around Homer's arms. They twisted, forcing his limbs into unnatural spirals, the bones snapping like dry twigs. He screamed, collapsing as his flesh tore, blood pooling beneath him. The demon loomed closer, its breath hot and rancid. "You dared to hope," it hissed, plucking out Homer's eyes with a flick of its claws. Darkness swallowed him, but the pain remained, sharp and unending. His eyes regenerated, only for the demon to rip them out again, each cycle more agonizing. "You'll suffer for your weakness," it spat, casting him into a pit that opened in the floor. Homer landed in a pool of viscous, scalding liquid that clung to his skin, peeling it away in strips. As he thrashed, his body began to change. His skin turned translucent, revealing pulsing veins and writhing organs beneath. His jaw stretched, sprouting jagged teeth that cut his own lips. Extra limbs erupted from his sides, flailing uselessly, each tipped with claw-like growths. He clawed at himself, desperate to stop the transformation, but the more he fought, the worse it became. His reflection shimmered in the liquid, a monstrous thing, no longer human, its eyes sunken and filled with despair. "No! This ain't me!" he wailed, but his voice was a guttural rasp, unrecognizable. The pit spat him out into a barren wasteland where he wandered as a beast, his mind fraying. Memories of Springfield faded, replaced by an animalistic urge to survive. Other damned creatures prowled the wastes, hulking, multi-limbed horrors that tore at him, their attacks relentless. He fought back, his new claws rending flesh, but each victory left him emptier, his humanity slipping further away. The demon's laughter echoed in his skull, a constant reminder of his failure. "You chose this," it taunted, and Homer's roars of anguish were all that answered. The wasteland dissolved, and Homer found himself back in the Springfield nuclear power plant, the control room pristine, the donut resting on the console. "What the?" he muttered, hope flickering. He reached for the donut, but the siren blared, and the explosion came again. This time he was crushed under falling beams, his ribs shattering, his lungs filling with blood. He awoke in the plant, again, only to be dissolved in a vat of radioactive sludge, his flesh liquefying. Each death was different, torn apart by rabid demonic dogs, impaled on jagged pipes, burned alive in a core meltdown. The cycle repeated, endless, each iteration, more horrific. His screams grew weaker, his mind numb, but the pain never dulled. In the final moments of the cycle, Homer knelt in the wasteland, his monstrous form trembling. The demon reappeared, its face now a mirror of Homer's own, twisted and grotesque. "You'll never escape," it said, its voice his own. "This is your eternity." Homer's head bowed, his pleas reduced to a whimper. The ground split beneath him, swallowing him into darkness, where the screams of the damned welcomed him back His suffering, he knew, would never end, each torment a testament to the life he'd squandered and the family he'd failed.